Welcome, welcome. Thanks for coming in, everyone. We're going to get into a topic today that I'm really excited to talk more about in depth. And I really hope we have some HSP leaders in here that are interested in learning how to create an HSP community in their local area. I am at a stage now through the last couple years of living through this pandemic where I feel the need to do more in-person work. I felt the pressure to create an online presence during the time that we had through 2020 and 2021. But now that we're kind of hopefully coming on the other side of this time, I think it's time to get into in-person events and creating community in my local area, not just through a global app. I've seen such an impact from creating this community here in Clubhouse and giving HSPs accessibility to one another, being able to connect with other HSPs, and really strengthening our education around what it means to be a highly sensitive person, the research behind it, the brain differences, the kind of go-to resources that are really helpful for us to feel empowered as an HSP and to eventually see our sensitivity as a superpower. So I wanted to hold space today for those of you who are interested and are at that stage of your journey in potentially reaching out to your local community as an educator, an advocate, an activist, someone who is capable of having the right conversations with different leaders in your community, different systems, different organizations, or even just creating your own HSP support group where you put out flyers or messages on different networking boards to let people know what an HSP is and how you can come together. So, this room is really geared towards those that are looking to do things locally in their community and to get support from HSPs that are perhaps further along on their HSP journey. And I have been talking here inside Clubhouse for the last year plus about highly sensitive people. So I've been engaged with highly sensitive people for over a year. I've heard everyone along their journey is at a different point. A lot of HSPs don't even know that there is a term or a trait called highly sensitive person. And that was the case for me at age 43. I learned about this trait through the movie Sensitive, which Elaine Aron had created to help people have a better understanding of this trait. She also has a few other movies that can help you about love and relationships through the eyes of an HSP. So I'm really just open to having a casual conversation with any of you in the room here, and even just to hear your feedback. What resonates with you? Is getting in person something that you feel comfortable with? Is that maybe not part of your personality, or maybe you're just a connector and you can connect with different people and have them facilitate something. I'll just give you a little bit of my personal background. Before the pandemic, I was a part-time substitute teacher, so I was engaging in the school system. I immediately picked up on the HSPs in the room. A lot of them would be the students who noticed the kid next to them tapping their foot, or they would need to have headphones on to concentrate and focus. And a little light bulb popped in my head and thought, how can we create a better learning environment for HSPs in a very overwhelming intense environment for the HSP. And so I thought about creating an HSP club, like an after school club. I also thought about the really difficult age of sixth grade going into junior high and how we are really influenced by our peers at that age. And how could we link arms, either a parents group or a group of adults that are HSPs, and kind of mentor these young kids as they go through those difficult years where they're highly influenced by their peers, and give them the tools to know that they can go their own way, that they need to take care of their nervous system differently, to educate the parents, to help them understand the kind of sleep and rest that they need. So, really creating a presentation for parents inside school systems, or presenting at a PTA meeting, or there's so many different possibilities. So, this is the way my brain works as a highly sensitive person, as a leader in my community. And I would love to hear if anyone else is interested in those kind of ideas, or if there's different ideas that I didn't mention that you could start to create in your local community. The other area that needs a lot of overhaul is the hospital medical world in terms of being more friendly to the highly sensitive person. I've had different highly sensitive or parents of highly sensitive kids come in here and tell me that they get on different conferences, that they can have access to medical professionals, and they speak about this trait so that they can educate others, and really make the medical world understand that highly sensitive people need to approach medicine and medical procedures from a completely different way. So I see Maria has popped in the room. I wanted her to share, if she can, about her local community that she's created. She hosts a once a month HSP support group, and she does different things in her support group to help educate HSPs, or to take on a book or an idea that they process as a group. I can let her speak about that. But that is something else that I really have been interested in, is creating just a once a month group that can come together and share our stories and feelings and ideas about being an HSP, and connected to other HSPs is really important in shaping our experience and creating a positive experience as an HSP. So that was a lot of information I just shared. So if any of that resonates with you, please feel free to raise your hand and we'll bring you up on stage. You can comment or discuss or share anything that's relevant. And if you need support in creating more of an in-person experience, please let us know, because I really want to create this space to also support those who are wanting to lead these ideas. And my huge vision for this is to see multiple local communities get behind creating safe sanctuaries or transforming systems, holding space, creating community for HSPs, and then seeing that ripple effect as we build those small localized roots movements. So I will also really quickly introduce myself. I kind of got stuck into this topic here and started going, but my name is Julie Staub. I'm an HSP. I'm a certified holistic wellness coach. I also call myself an HSP lifestyle coach, because I believe our lifestyle needs to look different than 80% of the population. So I really love to help other HSPs get creative about the lifestyle that they choose to work with their biology instead of against it. And I have done a lot of research on this topic. My go-to person is Elaine Aron. She wrote the book, The Highly Sensitive Person. If you're not familiar with this trait and you want to learn about this trait, I will put a little freebie up here on the top, which will point you to the self-test and a bunch of other resources to get you started. But I will go ahead and let Maria introduce herself and maybe just share, what prompted you to create this in-person community and kind of where you're at right now with it. This is Julie and I'm complete.
Hi everyone, my name's Maria. So good to see you again, Julie. We were just in a different room and I couldn't unmute myself because I have a screaming almost 2-year-old. So if I mute myself, it's because the child has gone crazy again. So, so yes, my name is Maria. I'm a highly sensitive person. I initially began this group, oh my gosh, I think it was like 4 years ago. I can't even remember. But I had just found out that I was a highly sensitive person, and at the time I was teaching full time. I was a first grade Spanish teacher, and I was sharing with some of my coworkers that, oh, I'm a highly sensitive person, and do you know what this means? And I just got really excited. And then I realized that the majority of people I worked with were also highly sensitive. And we were all just kind of in this frantic mode of survival because teaching is a really tough job. And for highly sensitive people, it's very rewarding, but we're also constantly overstimulated. So I thought it would be really fun to just start a club, almost like an after school club for teachers. And we had just moved to a new building. Our program was growing. I taught in a Spanish immersion program, so it was growing. Parents were really interested, and I just thought, what a great time to just try this out. Um, Unfortunately, the administration that was at that school was also new, and they were not very fond of my idea to begin with. So the principal kind of questioned me a little bit and like, what is your intent in starting this HSP club? And it just felt very important to me to provide a safe space for teachers to come together and learn more about this trait. And so I kind of just said, hey, you're welcome to join us. And I invited him every single month, and he never showed up, of course, but that's okay. And so it was a group of teachers that once a month we would come together in my classroom. We would sit in those tiny little first grade chairs and we would watch TED Talks, or we would talk about different books. I would share kind of what I was learning in therapy. And little by little, it just became into this kind of like monthly sigh of relief where we could just be. Sometimes people brought some pretty heavy things to the group, transitions they were going through, divorces, they like big decisions that they had to kind of negotiate with themselves. And it became a place where we could just be there for each other. Unfortunately, I did decide to leave the classroom about 3 years ago. I can't keep track anymore of what's what. After 2020, I can't keep track of what day or what year. But after I left the classroom, I decided to start my own business. And during that transition, a lot of the people that had been coming to these meetings asked me, can you keep doing these at your house? And so I have sustained that through this transition in my life. And we meet once a month at my house now, and there's been a fluctuation of people. People have moved to other states, people have joined, they come for a few times and they don't show up ever again. It just is an open space for people to come and learn more about the trait, and to just, how do we live a life with purpose and meaning in a world where sensitivity is not usually encouraged or accepted. Through the pandemic, we met online, which was my saving grace because I was having a really hard time during the pandemic. So it's just been a really nice group of people that just get it. I don't have to say much. I can just say, this was really hard, and they just know what I'm talking about. This year in 2022, I'm focusing more because it's been the same people pretty much the whole time that consistently show up. I'm kind of putting them in like a more of a leadership spot, I guess you could say, where I'm kind of now encouraging them to go out, and instead of seeing this as a trait that they have to deal with, kind of seeing it as that superpower that it can be, and really empowering people to live in their truth and to learn about this trait and to go out into their families and their communities and share about this. One of the people that ended up moving out of state, I guess I never realized how important this work was until she mentioned how she realized her 22-year-old daughter at the time was highly sensitive, and how she was struggling with young adulthood because she was just constantly overstimulated. And once this teacher learned about this trait, she told her daughter, and they decided to work at this together. And I mean, her daughter made a huge transformation, and she just, really accredited that to learning about the trait and understanding her daughter better, and really just accepting and empowering herself as a parent of a highly sensitive young adult to let her be almost who she is and not try to change her. So when I hear stories like that, it really just makes me think, we think that those little pebbles we throw in the river or lake or wherever, the ocean, I don't know, don't really matter, but they do. And I think that's what these communities can build, that just sense of showing up as who you are, doing what you can. I work with a lot of moms too, and parents of highly sensitive children, just kind of making it more accepting, I guess. So that was a very long way of explaining how this came about, but I am excited. We have our next meeting this coming Saturday. We have been reading books together and discussing them because we can have very in-depth conversations. I've been using a lot of creative art projects to kind of get us to engage with something like a new topic or things like that. So it's just a really fun way to, it's all free. So at this point, I don't want to monetize this because it's just fun and it's rewarding for me and for other people. It just builds community, and I think that we're missing that a lot these days. So my name is Maria, and I am complete.
Thank you, Maria. I love it. And I just love the ideas that you shared. And that's really what I want to cultivate here is just kind of coming up with a creative brainstorm of different ways that we can impact our local community. One thing that I did recently was pitch an article for the local high school publication, which actually happens to be the high school that I went to. And I just basically said I wanted to bring awareness around this trait, and it impacts, 1 in 4 people. And that means students at that high school are going to be highly sensitive. And I can only imagine, if the article is accepted and actually rolls out, how that will impact that population that maybe never heard of the term or considered themselves sensitive, but never had a label for it, and understood that it was not a disorder or anything that they needed to fix or change, but really it's an innate biological trait. It's something you're born with. And so the idea is when you're educated about it, you can go and approach your life through your biology instead of working against it. So that was another idea that I just wanted to share. So I'd love to hear from Danielle anything that you would like to ask or share or discuss. I'll go ahead and give you the mic.
Hi, Julie. Hi, Maria. So I'm actually staying with a friend at the moment, but I was really conscious of wanting to drop in really quickly, purely selfishly because I have a new Clubhouse account and I wanted to tell you both.
I was so
Um,
confused. I didn't know that was
yeah,
you, Danielle.
it's me. I need to get a picture. But yeah, so it was a step forward in honouring myself, so I needed to do it. But I've saved the replay, and I'm definitely very interested in this conversation. But I don't feel that I can give it the time today that I would like to give it. So I just would like to thank you very much for allowing me to interrupt briefly.
You are always welcome to come up on stage. I had no idea it was you. I
Thank
almost said,
you.
welcome to Clubhouse. I saw that you had the little party hat.
Yeah.
So, well, no, I stand by your choice to reestablish yourself and
Mm,
start fresh. So that's awesome. Good for you.
yeah. Thank you. Speak soon.
So I am excited to hear from anyone there in the audience. If you're just listening and tuning in because you're not able to come up to stage, I can definitely ask Maria some more questions, and we can just share different ideas that can just start the process of thinking about how can you make an impact in your local community as a highly sensitive person. Is there someone in your community that you're connected to where you provide information about a highly sensitive person and that person could facilitate a conversation, a discussion, a parent meeting, a school meeting, a hospital meeting. I know we've definitely had different people come in here at different legs of the Clubhouse journey, talking about their experience as a parent to a highly sensitive child and what that experience has been when their child is sick and they're going through the hospital system and how it doesn't serve them. Another thing that I'm really passionate about by being in Iowa City, which is where the University of Iowa is, Maria mentioned young adults and those struggles that, that transition of kind of coming out of college and being a young adult in the world and not even knowing that you're a highly sensitive person. So, how can I get in the college system, which they have all sorts of different kinds of clubs, really just meeting out to a club organizer or finding a way to be a resource to a club just so that you can spread awareness about this trait. So, if any of these ideas sound of interest to you and you want to come up and share or reflect or discuss, you are welcome to do so. But I will go ahead. Oh, looks like we have, oops. I am bringing Taikisha. Am I saying that right?
Yes, Takesha, thank you. I appreciate you bringing me on.
Well, welcome. What would you like to share?
Yeah, this is actually something that I've been kind of ruminating on quite a bit here lately. I've known that I was a highly sensitive person, like mainly most of my life, just because like my grandmother, she didn't like call it a highly sensitive person, but she just knew that I was just like a really sensitive child. And so she, was someone who kind of like protected me in a sense. Like if I had cousins and stuff and they would tease me, and she would like tell them that they shouldn't be doing that, stuff like that. So I feel like I do have somewhat of a responsibility putting this out here, like in my community. And right now, I think I would have like a really good opportunity to try and weave this into what I'm already doing. So, like right now, I'm in my third year of like training, like doing yoga therapy, and I actually was thinking about weaving this into, because like I have to have like an end research project, like a big one, and so I was going to present yoga therapy as a highly sensitive person, or how to apply this. So I've been thinking about it for quite a while, but I really wanted to try and weave these together. And once I get a handle on the thought process behind this, I would like to really try and bring it to like children.
I love that. I am too guided to work with kids. What I love about Elaine Aron's research, the author of The Highly Sensitive Person, and the researcher basically that got this trait more publicly out there in the 90s, she mentions that HSPs who are raised in an environment with childcare providers who allow them to feel their feelings, process emotionally, instead of um, telling them that they need to stop crying or stop having their feelings or don't feel so much. Um, when an HSP is in a positive environment, they're able to almost accelerate into their superpowers at a very young age. Whereas HSPs who didn't have the most supportive environment often have issues as adults in relationships, in having a relationship with their body. So you mentioned yoga. I think that that disassociation comes from feeling too much and not having the proper tools and support to understand that depth of processing and feeling. So a lot of adults may have issues with just disconnecting from their body and not being present in their body. And also different chronic health issues, which has been my experience. I didn't have a supportive environment. My parents did the best that they could, but they just didn't have the emotional skills or awareness. And they definitely had not heard of a highly sensitive child. But I really would like to make that a different experience for young children. I've always been connected to children. I was a nanny in New York City. My mom ran an in home daycare. I've been babysitting since I was 9. And the thing about being a highly sensitive person and your connection with children, it seems to be something that I can do very easily to connect to kids because I can get into that space of connecting with my inner child, and being around children brings my inner child out. So it can be a win-win when working with children as a highly sensitive person. So I think that your instincts are taking you down a path that can be really useful to a lot of people. So I just wanted to cheer you on for your thoughts and ideas about integrating this work with your yoga work. I think that's an amazing place to start.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate everything you said. You connected something here for me that I hadn't been able to connect before, and that is that relationship with my body. Like, I convinced myself most of my life that I did not like sports. I didn't like physical activity for the most part. I think that it was more so because I literally feel everything. And I was like, trying to process all of those things all the time, and I had to, learn better ways to deal with that, and knowing that I don't have to process everything, like everything isn't mine to process. So yeah, no, I really appreciate you saying that. That gives me a little bit more to, reflect back on. I was also going to tell you too, I'm actually born and raised in Davenport, Iowa. So it's cool that you
What?
mentioned Iowa City. Yeah.
So
I live in
I was
Michigan
going to
now,
ask,
but
where are
yeah.
you now? Okay. Well,
Yeah, I live in
got
Michigan.
it.
I do come back pretty often though.
Are you in Iowa City at all, or just Davenport?
No, I do go to Iowa City. I Some of my family lives in Iowa City, so if I go to Davenport, I usually go to Iowa City as well.
That's awesome. That's exciting. And that's exactly why I created this conversation, because I think we're all coming from this highly sensitive experience from different angles. And when we get each other around other highly sensitive people, we're good dot connectors. We're able to kind of maybe see things that other people aren't able to see. And so I'm really happy that this conversation kind of gave you a key to that puzzle that you're trying to understand. For me, I was certified as a holistic wellness coach in 2006. And this was when I lived in New York City. I've always been driven to natural holistic healing. Um, and this was way before I knew I was an HSP. But when I learned about the trait in 2018, I knew immediately I needed to connect the the two. I needed to kind of set up what I do as a holistic wellness coach to really serve and support highly sensitive people, because highly sensitive people, like I said, can tend to have different experiences in the medical world, for starters. And a lot of times, highly sensitive people are dismissed in the medical world. We are told it's all in our head. We tend to understand what's happening inside of our body before a lab shows that truth. And it can just feel like a lot of gaslighting. And so that experience can be very traumatic, and doing any sort of medical avenues can feel traumatic. So that's why, again, I'm really passionate about transforming these systems that aren't serving highly sensitive people, and just taking my own personal experience and seeing how I can apply what I know to that system. And then, banding arms with other HSPs that have expertise or knowledge in different areas, and then having this wonderful community to access all the different talents and gifts that we have as HSPs and really come together. So I'm glad that this was helpful for you to kind of connect the dots with the work that you're doing. And I think that's amazing. And anytime you're in Iowa City, let me know. I would love to buy you a cup of coffee and chat about HSPs. That's really awesome that I'm meeting someone on a global app that's pretty close to where I live. So that's awesome. Thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you so much. There was one more thing. I will definitely let you know when I come in town next. And I do have somewhat of an advantage here because part of my training, like we work like as clinicians, so I work clinically. So I think I would be in a really good spot to be able to, bring this information forth to the medical world in a way that maybe they would be more accepting of it because we work with like a lot of integrative health doctors and medical teams and things of that nature. So I'm actually going to talk to like my mentor. She's like pretty much the pioneer in the area of Metro Detroit when it comes to yoga therapy and see if she can like help me think of this in a way that would be conducive for what it is that I'm trying to do. So thank you so much.
Awesome. I love it. I love that we're kind of just thinking through this in the spot in the moment. So I'm excited for you. Um, and it's interesting how I wanted to mention to something Maria had mentioned, um, kind of coming to this realization that we need to be prepared, that maybe when we start to approach different people, they won't really understand it from our perspective or see the sense of urgency or value. I think now more than ever, coming out of this pandemic, that highly sensitive people will revolutionize the way we live our lives because we are the pioneers of what is best for our nervous system. And what is good for the HSP is good for other people. And so if you're feeling called to, or you're hearing little voices inside of you that are saying, go speak to this person or connect with this person, or you should tell someone about what a highly sensitive person is, listen to those little nudges, those intuitive guides, because I really strongly believe that HSPs are here to change the world, and now is our time. So it's our time to step into our power. It's our time to stop hiding. It's our time to move into action, and it's our time to get off being online and seeing what you can do to impact your local community. But it could feel discouraging. I definitely have approached the school system and I've talked to different teachers that I know, and I know the general mentality and attitude is good luck with that. There is so many limited budgets. So it's just about getting resourceful and creative, and also being really strong about your why. Why are you doing this? Why is it important? What is that ripple effect that you want to create by just, like Maria said, one little pebble in the lake can change so many lives. We don't necessarily see it or know how that happens, but I think it's important that we listen to that inner guidance system that's, perhaps telling us something that sounds weird or different, but to just follow that through and see, where it lands you on your journey. So I know with Maria, you've been doing this for some time. What was it like for you in the beginning? I mean, obviously you shared that this administration didn't really understand. How did you receive that information, and why did you decide to do it anyway?
I think you make a really good point about all this, and it's so exciting. So I'm just gonna say this first, but thank you, Keisha, that you want to do this with yoga and children, because my 7-year-old would benefit so much from that. Like, somebody please help me with my child, is what I feel like some days. But I think, yeah, this is very much needed, and it's really exciting to hear someone share their ideas for the kind of like for the first time, because you hear the excitement in their voice. So I just wanted to say that first, that I heard excitement in your voice, but. At the very beginning, it was very challenging, mostly because I was still discovering what an HSP was, so I wasn't even sure if what I was sharing was going to make sense to anybody else. But I also think that that's what made it more relatable. Okay, hold on a second.
I'll let Maria get situated. I just wanted to share one of the ways that we can reach out to our local community. Before we were all online, during the pandemic, I used to teach in-person photography classes, and I first approached my local rec center to just host classes and teach people on how to use a point and shoot camera. That evolved to the local community college where they did continuing ed programs, and I taught there. And then I stepped into coaching privately for those students who wanted more. They wanted more help, they wanted more one-on-one care. And then I would help them with their different camera projects or their different photo projects, or maybe they wanted to have their first art show. So it really is a journey of starting simple and starting easy and doing things that can then lead to something bigger. And I just get really excited when I talk to one person who leads me to another person, who leads me to another person, or shares a new idea that I can get behind. So just starting somewhere where you're at in your journey. You don't have to be a professional leader, or you don't have to be an HSP expert. You could just be a parent to an HSP, or maybe you're an HSP parent and you have a mom circle and you just want to have a conversation in one of your monthly meetups or weekly meetups, whatever that might be, and just educate people. Tell them where to find the self-test. By the way, if you're looking for the self-test or any resources, I have a link here on the top of the room to my HSP resource guide. This is designed specifically for those who are just learning about the trait, who want to see the brain differences and start to look at the different resources available to you, as well as taking the self-test. So I think it's a good starter point. If someone is interested in the topic, you can share this resource with them. You can share the book, The Highly Sensitive Person. But there's so many points of starting that you don't feel that you don't have to be the expert in the room, but you can just start the conversation. You can plant the seed. So I just wanted to make that idea present as well. And we'll check with Maria. Are you able to get back on, Maria?
Yes, crisis averted. He wanted to bring the rocks in from outside, and I said no. But your point, exactly what you made right now, Julie, is exactly what I was gonna say. That at the beginning, it felt very much like, well, who am I to be the person that shares this? Like, who am I in my journey to be able to help others? And I think getting really clear on you're not here to tell people how to do things, but rather just be in the journey with them and discover things together and kind of come together to figure out life. That really changed kind of my perspective on why I wanted to do the meetings to begin with. And I mean, there's been times where I just say, oh, but what if nobody shows up? Or, what if this isn't to help anybody? And my mantra has just always been, if it helps one person, it's always worth it. Even if it helps just one person, it's always worth it, because you just don't know what impact that's going to make. And honestly, it's more about navigating the systems that we're in as a highly sensitive person and having a support system for yourself as well. So these are the people that I've been able to reach out to when I've had a really tough time, especially during the pandemic. These were the people that they became, people say tribe. I don't really resonate with that word, but these are your people because they just get you at a deeper level. These are the people that I want to have conversations with about books that we read or art that we create or parenting, um, and it's just such a beautiful way to get to know the differences between other highly sensitive people as well. Because, yes, we all fall under this umbrella HSP, but we're all so different because we've had so many different life experiences and our personalities are different and we've had different parents. And So it's really cool to see HSPs kind of step in through their own power in their own ways and live the lives that they want to live and how that benefits everybody as a whole. But I would say definitely at the beginning, if you're just starting out and you're not sure, how do I do this? Who do I have to convince in order to do this? It just try it out and know that it doesn't have to be like that forever and that people will come and go. And if you help one person, then that's always worth it.
Yes, I totally agree with that. And again, I really want to hit on Maria's point and what I shared earlier. You don't have to be an expert, you don't have to know it all. You can just simply hand a book to a library and say, do you have this book on your shelf? Do you have a book club? Is this a book I can recommend as a book club book? Or I mean, my creative brain goes rapid fire. And when I get around other people and I hear their problems, I'm really able to see resources that I can bring up or ideas that I can bring up. So I really want to recommend that, if you are someone that's looking to have these conversations, start these conversations, feel free to reach out to me. I'm in the process of redoing my whole website. I'm moving off of social media. I don't consider Clubhouse social media, but I'm moving away from Facebook and Instagram. And I hope to have a container on my website that would um, house those conversations and be a portal that, if you're interested in connecting with your local community, um, let me know how you're trying to do that, and perhaps we can create a support group once a month for those who are looking to lead that path in their local communities. So this is just really the first Clubhouse room that I've had about this conversation. So if this is something that people feel strongly about doing once a month, just to kind of come to a safe place and talk about the challenges or your positive experiences with this process, I'm more than happy to do that too. So let me know in the Clubhouse back channel, or you can even just send an email to me if that's more comfortable for you. So I just wanted to get the conversation going. We'll be here for another 15 minutes. And if there's anyone in the audience that would like to share anything or contribute to the conversation, you're more than welcome to raise your hand and come on up. Otherwise, Maria, do you have any tips or tools that have been really helpful for you in creating your club, and um, just anything you would like to share?
Yeah, I'd say that at the beginning, I had to be very mindful and very clear about creating a space. How do I word this? So we were all teachers and we were all stressed and we all wanted to come at the end of the day to a meeting where we could just vent. And while that can be very productive, I had to be very mindful and be very clear about what this was and what this was not. And I think ultimately that's what made this work in the end, is that people knew they could have a safe space to vent, but it wasn't like a venting session where we just talk about how horrible everything is and all the stress, and then we all leave feeling super heavy. It was a place where we could come and share our frustrations, but we also were going to support each other in coming up with solutions or whatever it was. That it wasn't like that heaviness. And I think people felt, obviously they felt that they're HSPs, and I think that's why we decided to continue after I left teaching, was because we desperately needed a place like that. But I had to be very mindful at the beginning of how to navigate that in a society, in a world where it's very easy to have that bonding over, talking about how stressed out we are. That obviously doesn't help HSPs as much. I don't know if it helps anybody actually, but you know what I mean, right? So I think just making that very clear, like what is your intention with the space that you're creating, and being very mindful of the people that do come into that space and having those hard conversations with people when, if you have a particular person that continues to show up, and having to tell that person, hey, this is not the space for that. This is what we're here to do. So It's a lot to think about, but I think this is one of our fortes, that we are very aware when these situations happen, and so we are very, like, we feel things very deeply, so we know. But just kind of throwing that in there is you're kind of trying to navigate that first step or into starting something like this. And then the other thing I was going to mention was just maybe documenting everything you do. I remember I still have some of, like, the very beginning presentations, because I would do PowerPoints. Like a weirdo, I would make PowerPoints for a bunch of teachers, and I would go back like years later and look at, oh my gosh, look at the things we were talking about. Like, that's so crazy that we're still talking about the same things, but now we're talking about it in a much deeper way. Or, oh my gosh, I totally forgot we already watched that. And so just having a place where you document things and just kind of keep a journal of some kind for yourself, to navigate your growth in that way.
I think you bring up a really valid point, Maria. And actually, as you were sharing, I was like, oh, I need to create a resource. And then we can build upon that resource all the different ideas, tools, practices, different things that we've used along the journey, so that as it is documented, we can create something that is downloadable. And if someone is interested in doing it in their own local community, it would kind of give them the blueprint, the roadmap to how to move forward. Maybe it would, help them think of different ideas that would work in their own personal experience. So I think that's a really important, valid tip. And also on the venting part, I think that has always been a challenge when talking about highly sensitive people. I think especially people who have been really hurt and um, are not seen and heard. And so they come into these spaces wanting to be seen and heard instead of contributing in a creative, optimistic, positive way. It can turn the room into something really heavy and negative. And as you said, we are always feeling everything around us. So I think it is really important to be mindful and to be really intentional about holding space. And, if those circumstances happen, you can always, let people know what the intention is. And like you said, kind of redirect that venting act into something that feels like everyone is coming together and we're getting our cup filled, which gives us more energy to go and do the things that we really want to do in our local community. And I just want to say that, if you are someone who is wanting to get support on that journey, please reference back to me or Maria and ask for help if you need it. But I think also creating some sort of template resource tool would be really beneficial. And I think as we have more of these conversations and ideas are shared, I think that will become a really rich reference. So I'm excited about that. Um, and let's see here. If no one is interested in coming up here on stage, or you're not able to at this time, we can kind of wrap up the room here. I really would love to host more of these rooms. So if you are interested, please send me a message in the back channel and we can start to meet on Clubhouse, or we can meet outside of Clubhouse. I'm really open to whatever that process looks like. So let me know what you're interested in, and I'm always happy to brainstorm with you, get creative, and help my fellow HSP move more powerfully in this world. So I'm trying to think if there's anything else I want to add here. Maria, is there anything you want to add before we close?
I couldn't find my button. Sorry. No, I think this is just a great starting point. I'm excited that we heard Takesha's idea about the yoga. I'm really intrigued by that idea. Um, and just that we have a space here that we can hold for each other to come up with, share ideas and see what works and doesn't, and kind of get the ins and outs of, how do we show up in our communities to help bring awareness and help HSPs around us.
Yes, I totally agree. And I was very excited to hear Taikisha's idea and what is important to her as well. Again, I think coming together, sharing our ideas, it just really helps us along this journey. And, really at the root of this is advocacy and education, which I'm really passionate about in terms of being a highly sensitive person, and in just creating a better world for other highly sensitive people, especially children. Um, and I know that there is this technique I'm going to have to share with you, Taikisha, when I can Google it, that helps children process their emotions. There's a name for it. Am now thinking that might even also be a really a good connecting point for the study that you're doing with yoga. So
Yes, thank
I'll
you
have
so
to
much.
Google it because I actually have a friend in Dubuque, Iowa, who learned about being a highly sensitive person through her children, who are both highly sensitive children. And then when she started to research, the issues or conditions that they were experiencing, she thought, well, I'm a highly sensitive person as well. But she is just a huge advocate in her children's life in getting them the right kind of resources and tools to help them better process their emotions and put labels to the different emotions we have. So I just can't think of it at the top of my head right now, but I will definitely point you in the right direction with that. But with that being said, if we are done with this conversation and no one is able to come up on stage or ask questions or anything, we'll go ahead and close the room. But just know that this is just the beginning of an ongoing conversation. Feel free to reach out to me if you weren't able to come up on stage. If you have any suggestions or resources or ideas about just kind of creating a local movement and building a local community. I think it's really important that if you are in a place of understanding and knowing that this can impact other people, you can make all the difference in someone's lives by just sharing your knowledge about this trait. So listen to those little whispers inside of you and those intuitive nudges. They're there for a reason, and they can help you connect the dots to other people that could also continue the ripple effects. So thanks so much for being here. Thank you so much for sharing your journey, Taikisha, and how funny that we're both familiar with Iowa. Who knew, on a global app? But again, I'm really thankful Maria was able to join us. She is very active in her community of teachers and parents, and I love what she's doing and just hosting a monthly meeting. I think it's really rich. So thanks for being here, Maria. And we'll have another room next Thursday, not this Thursday, but the following week. I'll be talking about HSPs on the healing journey. So if you can identify with that path and what that looks like for you as a highly sensitive person, I'm going to get into that and have a discussion on different resources and tools and practitioners that can be helpful on that journey. So join us, not this Thursday, but next Thursday. We'll be doing another room in the Highly Sensitive People Club. If you're not following the club, please click on the little green house and you can follow the club. You'll see a list of rooms in the club description. You can click on the bell and it will ping you into the room when the room is open. That's a good way to stay on top of the different conversations in the club. And if you are interested in the HSP resource guide, that is the link I have at the top of the room. It'll ask you for your email. Please check your junk folder and your spam folder and your promotions tab so that we can confirm your email, and then that guide will be sent to you. So thanks again, everyone, for being here. This was a great conversation. I'm super excited about the awesome opportunities that we can create when we put our heads together as HSPs. So thanks again for being here. Have a great day, everyone.